Hi, welcome to i-TUTOR Economics NCERT series. Today we are going to start with a new chapter, Poverty as a Challenge. Let me ask you, when you hear the word poverty, what comes to your mind? Maybe hunger, no proper clothes, no house, etc. Yes, all of these are part of poverty. And today's chapter deals with one of the biggest challenges independent India has faced, that is poverty. This chapter will show us what poverty looks like in India and the world, how we measure poverty using poverty line, what causes poverty, and finally, the steps taken by the government to reduce poverty or anti-poverty measures taken by the government. Now, here's something very shocking. In 2011-12, every fourth person in India is poor. That means about 270 million people lived in poverty. Can you imagine? 27 crore people, more than the population of many countries. And India had the largest single group of poor people in the world. This shows how serious this challenge is. When we say the word poverty, we shouldn't think only about less money. Poverty is much bigger than that. Poverty means hunger and lack of shelter. It means parents can't send their children to school, or it means parents can't send their children to school, or it is a situation where sick people cannot afford treatment, or it also means lack of clean water and sanitation facilities, or lack of regular jobs. But above all, poverty means living with the sense of helplessness, where the poor feels powerless and are often ill-treated in farms, factories, offices, hospitals, and even railway stations. Just think, nobody in the world would like to live like this. That's why one of the biggest challenges for India after independence was to remove poverty. In fact, Mahatma Gandhi once said, India would be truly independent only when the poorest of its people become free of human sufferings. What did he say? India would be truly independent only when the poorest of its people become free of human sufferings. Now, let's see how social scientists looks at poverty. Earlier, they used to measure poverty only by income and consumption. But do you think poverty is just about money? Not really, right? Today, poverty is measured using other social indicators such as illiteracy level, lack of general resistance due to malnutrition, lack of access to healthcare, lack of job opportunities, lack of access to safe drinking water, sanitation, etc. Now, social scientists also study poverty through the lens of social exclusion and vulnerability. Social exclusion means when certain groups are kept out of society's benefit. And vulnerability means the risk of becoming poor due to crisis, disaster, or exploitation. Let us look at it deeply. What do you mean by social exclusion? Poverty is actually not about money or calories. Sometimes people are kept out from opportunities, benefits, and facilities that others enjoy. This exclusion makes poverty worse. According to this concept, poverty must be seen in terms of poor having to live only in poor surroundings with the poor people. Okay, and social exclusion can be both a cause as well as consequence. Both a cause as well as consequence. What is the cause? Yes, if people are denied education, jobs, or equal rights, they will remain poor. That is the cause. And what about consequence? Yes, because they are poor, society further excludes them. Because they are poor, society further excludes them, and so therefore no opportunities. Again poverty, more exclusion, and poverty continues. For example, caste system in India. In traditional society, people from certain castes were not allowed to go to school, take government jobs, use village wells, enter temples, etc. If they worked hard, they were kept outside the circle of growth. So even if they worked hard, they were kept outside the circle of growth. So their poverty was not just due to lack of income, but because of denial of equal opportunities. Why it is worse than low income? Okay, if you only have less money, you may still get chance to improve. But if you are excluded from schools, jobs, or community life, your growth is blocked permanently. This makes social exclusion a deeper form of poverty. Now, do you know about the term vulnerability? What does it mean? Yes, vulnerability means being at greater risk of falling into poverty or remaining poor. Certain people or communities face more danger during bad times than others. Who are those vulnerable groups? Yes, some socially disadvantaged groups like backward caste, tribal groups, etc. Or individuals like widows, elderly, physically handicapped, and so on. They may already be poor, or even if not poor now, they are more likely to slip into poverty in the future. When do they suffer most? Yes, during natural disasters, or like floods, earthquakes, tsunamis, etc., or during economic shocks, or during social problems like terrorism, caste discrimination, and so on. Why more vulnerable? Yes, they have very fewer resources like money, education, skills, so they have less social support. They are often excluded from opportunities. For example, I'll tell you a story. So, after a flood, a rich family can repair their house, buy food, restart life. But a poor widow in the same flood loses her hut, has no savings, and no job security. She is more vulnerable than the rich. How do we decide whether a person is poor or not? Is it just by looking at them? No. We use a standard measurement called poverty line. Okay. A common method used to measure poverty is based on the income or consumption level. A person is poor if their income or consumption is below the minimum level needed to fulfill basic needs like food, clothing, housing, healthcare, education, etc. It varies. Poverty line is not same everywhere. It varies at different times and at different countries. For example, in US, not having a car may mean poverty. But in India, having a car is still luxury. So poverty line depends on country, time, and living standards. How poverty line is calculated in India? Yes, based on minimum level of food requirement, clothing, footwear, fuel, and light. I will tell you about the calorie requirement. In India, 2400 calories per person per day in rural area is the calorie requirement, and 2100 calories per person per day in urban area is the calorie requirement. To get minimum income needed, how can we calculate it? Multiply required food items into their prices, we will get minimum income needed for that. Okay, and old standards according to 2011-12 data of NSSO, for rural areas or poverty line for a person was fixed at rupees 816 per month for rural areas and rupees 1000 for urban areas. And what about updated standards? For rural areas, rupees 1632 per person per month. And for rural areas, and for urban areas 1944 per person per month. This shows that price and living cost increases with time. That's why the poverty line is revised regularly. And who decides this? Yes, NSSO or National Sample Survey Organization conducts surveys every 5 years. For world comparison, World Bank uses $1 per person per day. And now updated standard is $3 per person per day. Look at this box. In 1993-94, 45% of India's population was below the poverty line. By 2004-05, it reduced to 37.2%. By 2011-12, it further dropped to 21.9%. This means in less than 20 years, poverty has halved. A 2025 study using the Rangarajan Committee methodology, or applied to 2023 Household Consumption Expenditure Survey. Okay, the Rangarajan Committee methodology estimated that 26.4% of India's population is still below the poverty line. In contrast, some government statements and report claim poverty is now below 5%. Why there is a difference between Rangarajan committee and the government reports? Because Rangarajan methods is more inclusive consumption basket. Older methods may ignore or underweight non-food cost. Now, vulnerable groups. Some groups in society are more vulnerable to poverty than others. Some social groups as well as economic groups. Social groups are scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, etc. And their households. What about economic groups? Yes, rural agricultural laborers and households and urban casual laborers. Their households are most at risk. The situation becomes even more serious for households that face double disadvantage. For example, landless casual wage laborer from SC or ST community. This combination of social and economic disadvantage highlight how serious this poverty can be. Studies from 1990s shows that poverty has declined for most groups except for SC and ST. The other three groups, SC households, rural agricultural laborers and urban casual laborers, have seen some improvement. But poverty is not just about households. It also exists within families. In poor families, everyone suffer, but some suffer more. For example, women, elderly people and female infants, they suffer more. Women, elderly people and female infants suffer more because they have less access to resources. That is why these groups, women, children and older people, are often called as poorest of the poor. Now, let's go to the next topic, interstate disparities. Poverty is not uniform across all states in India. Although the overall poverty rate has declined steadily since 1970s, the success in reducing poverty varies widely across states. According to headcount ratio, HCR means headcount ratio in the 2011-12, it was 21.9% at the national level. Do you know what does this headcount ratio means? Headcount ratio is the proportion of population living below the poverty line calculated by dividing the number of poor people of the total population. Headcount ratio means number of people below the poverty line divided by total population. Headcount ratio of India. Do you know what is headcount ratio of India now? Yes, it is 11.28%. Now, states like Madhya Pradesh, Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, and also along with Odisha, they had poverty levels above the national average. Bihar and Odisha remains the poorest states with poverty ratio of 33.7% and 37.6% respectively. In Odisha, it is now reduced to 15.68%. In these states, both rural and urban poverty is high. In contrast, some states have seen significant reduction in poverty, like Kerala, Jammu Kashmir, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat and West Bengal. The reason may vary by state. Okay, the reason may vary. Punjab and Haryana. What about Punjab and Haryana? Punjab and Haryana, they have high agricultural growth helped reduce poverty. What about Kerala? Yes, Kerala focus on human resource development. What about West Bengal? Land reform measures help poorer households. For about Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, public distribution of food grains contributed to the improvement. This poverty reduction depends not only on economic growth but also on state-specific policies and intervention. Now, global poverty scenario. Globally, the proportion of people living in extreme poverty defined by the World Bank as living on less than $1.25 per day has fallen from 43% in 1990 to 22% in 2008. As of 2024 data, the global extreme poverty rate is around 9%. Now measured as living on less than $2.15 per day. However, this reduction is uneven across regions. China and Southeast Asia, their poverty declined sharply due to rapid economic growth and major investment in human development. About South Asian countries, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh, Bhutan, the decline has been slower compared to East Asia. About Sub-Saharan Africa, poverty remains high, only slightly falling from 51% in 1981 to 47% in 2008. What about Latin America? Yes, poverty levels have mostly stayed the same. Former socialist countries like Russia, poverty has resurfaced even though it was officially absent earlier. These differences shows that economic growth alone is not enough. Effective policies on human development and social welfare are essential to reduce poverty. Now, causes of poverty. There are several reasons for the widespread poverty in India. What are those reasons? Yes, historical reasons are there. And then limited job opportunities, then income inequalities, then socio, cultural and economic factors. So let's look at these causes. What are the historical factors? Yes, during the British colonial period, economic development was very low. Policies of colonial government drew in traditional handicrafts and discouraged industries like textiles. This resulted in fewer jobs and low income growth while population grew rapidly. The combination of low per capita income growth and high population growth perpetuated the cycle of poverty. Do you know the meaning of per capita income? Yes, per capita income shows the average income per person in particular area such as a country, state or region. It is calculated by dividing the total income of that area by its population. Per capita income is equal to total income divided by total population. If the total income of the country rises faster than its population, PCI increases. Conversely, if population grows faster than income, PCI may fall, indicating slower economic progress for the average person. Okay. Now, limited job opportunities. The Green Revolution and spread of irrigation created some jobs in agriculture, but mostly in certain regions. Industries, both public and private, provided jobs, but not enough for all job seekers. Many people moved to cities and worked as rickshaw pullers, vendors, construction workers, domestic servants, etc. With irregular and low income, they could not afford proper housing and often lived in urban slums. As a result, poverty, once mainly rural, also became an urban problem. Now, income inequalities. Huge differences in land and resources ownership have contributed to poverty. Okay. Policies like land reforms aimed at redistributing assets in rural areas have not been effectively implemented in most states. Proper implementation could have improved the levels of millions of rural poor. Now, socio-cultural and economic factors. Even the poor spend money to fulfill social obligation or observe religious ceremonies. Okay, even the poor spend money to fulfill social obligations or observe religious ceremonies. Small farmers need money to buy agricultural inputs like seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, etc. Since poor households lack savings, or what did they do? They borrow money. When they cannot repay loan due to poverty, they become trapped in debt. Thus, high indebtedness is both a cause and effect of poverty. Now, anti-poverty measures. India's current strategy to reduce poverty is based on two main approaches. One is promotion of economic growth, and the second one is targeted anti-poverty programs. Economic growth and poverty reduction. In the early 1950s, about 45% of India's population lived below the poverty line, and this remained largely the same until the early 80s. Since 1980s, India's economic growth accelerated from 3.5% per year in 1970s to around 6% during the year 1980s and 90s. Higher growth has significantly reduced poverty, showing a strong link between growth and poverty alleviation. Growth creates opportunities and resources for human development, encouraging families, including those with girls, to invest in education. However, not all poor people benefits directly from the growth, especially as agricultural growth remains low, affecting rural poverty. Now let's look at targeted anti-poverty programs. To complement growth, India has implemented several schemes to directly tackle poverty. First thing is Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act 2005. It provides 100 days of wage employment per rural households. It focuses on livelihood security and sustainable development. 1/3 of the jobs are reserved for women. It has generated about 220 crore person days of employment for 4.78 crore households. Now, this is the first one, Mahatma Gandhi Rural Employment Guarantee Act. Second one is Prime Minister Rozgar Yojana 1993. It creates self-employment opportunities for educated unemployed youth in rural areas and smaller towns. It supports small businesses and industries. Third one, Rural Employment Generation Program. It focuses on self-employment in rural areas and small towns. A target of 25 lakh new jobs was set under 10th 5-year plan. Then fourth one is Swarna Jayanti Gram Swarozgar Yojana. It aims to bring assisted poor families above the poverty line. It organizes families into self-help groups, providing a mix of bank credits and government subsidy. Fifth one is Pradhan Mantri Gramodaya Yojana 2000. It provides additional central assistance for primary health, education, rural shelter, drinking water and electrification. Sixth one, Antyodaya Anna Yojana. It focuses on providing subsidized food grains to the poorest of the poor. What are the challenges here? The challenges ahead? Many programs have mixed result due to poor implementation. Overlapping schemes reduce efficiency. Benefits often do not reach the most deserving poor. So the recent focus is greater emphasis is now on proper monitoring and effective targeting of all poverty alleviation programs. Now the challenges ahead. Poverty in India has declined over the years. But it remains one of the most pressing challenges for the country. There are wide disparities between rural and urban areas. Certain social and economic groups now also remains vulnerable. Now, future progress. Poverty reduction is expected to accelerate in the next 10 to 15 years. High economic growth, universal free elementary education, declining population, then increasing empowerment of women and economically weaker sections of the society. Now, what are the limitations of the official poverty definition? Yes, official poverty measures focus on minimum subsistence level, not a reasonable standard of living. Many scholars argue for a broader concept of human poverty, which includes access to education, then shelter, healthcare and job securities, freedom from caste and gender discrimination, elimination of child labor, etc. So, as development progresses, the definition of poverty also changes, making poverty eradication a moving target. While India may provide the minimum necessary income to everyone in the next decade, bigger challenges will remain same, such as ensuring healthcare and education for all, providing job securities, achieving gender equality and dignity of poor. So these challenges highlighted that poverty eradication is not just about income, but about improving overall human well-being. Poverty in India has declined over the years, but it remains a major challenge due to disparities across region or social groups or urban-rural areas. While economic growth and targeted poverty alleviation programs have helped reduce poverty, structural issues like income inequality, lack of resources, and social disadvantages continue to hold back progress. Looking ahead, sustainable poverty reduction will require not just higher incomes, but also improvements in education, healthcare, gender equality, and social empowerment. In short, poverty eradication is not just about income, but about ensuring a dignified and secure life for all, making it a continuous evolving challenges for India. Now, let's solve some PYQs from this topic. Okay. Among the following, who are eligible benefit from the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act? Option A, adult members of only the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe households. Option B, adult members of below poverty line households. Option C, adult members of households of all backward communities. And option D, adult members of any households. What is the answer? Yes, option D, adult members of any households. Next, second question. In a given year in India, official poverty lines are higher in some states than others because option A, poverty rates vary from state to state. Option B, price levels vary from state to state. Option C, gross state products vary from state to state. And option D, quality of public distribution varies from state to state. What is the answer? Yes, option D, quality of public distribution varies from state to state. So that's all about today. Thanks for watching. For more related contents, do like, share and subscribe.